Hello and welcome to Founders Amplified, where we spotlight underrepresented founders who are driving innovation and impact across various industries and sectors across the globe. I'm your host, Narayan Kulkarni, and I'm excited to be here with you today. Today's guest is Phil McAuliffe. Phil McAuliffe, who uses he/him pronouns, is a speaker, author, connection mentor, and global loneliness thought leader. He draws upon his lived experience to start and lead kind and honest conversations that destigmatize loneliness and help humans get the authentic connection they need within themselves, their workplaces, and communities. He is the founder of Humans Connecting, a social enterprise promoting human connection and destigmatizing loneliness. Phil was an Australian public servant for 23 years. He's lived and worked in Canberra, Caracas, Darwin, Ho Chi Minh City, Seoul, Tokyo, and Wellington as a diplomat and as an accompanying diplomatic spouse. He worked as an English teacher and a journalist in Caracas. His lived experience of loneliness and insights into human connection have appeared in Science, the BBC World Service, and various Australian television, radio, and print media. He lives in Canberra on Ngunnawal and Ngambri country with Jeff, his partner, and their twin teenage sons. So, now that you know a little bit about Phil, let's dive in to the conversation. Welcome to Founders Amplified, Phil. Amazing to have you with us today. How are you doing, sir?
I'm going really well. Thanks, Narayan. Lovely to see you again, and hello to the audience.
Again, likewise, amazing to see you. The first time we saw each other was a few years ago, and we were reconnecting after quite some time. And again, thanks so much for joining us. So to kick things off, I want to hear a little bit more about your journey. So could you tell us about what led you to become the founder that you are today? And were there any particular moments or experiences that sparked that decision?
So I am the founder of Humans Connecting, and it's hard to know exactly where to best answer that question because I feel that this has been 48 years in the making. And like so many people, I believed that loneliness was something that happened to other people. It happened to the bereaved, it happened to the elderly. And here I was as an Australian public servant working in diplomacy, having a pretty awesome job, a job that I had worked really hard for such a long time to get. Like I did well at school, did well at university, got into the public service and worked my way up through the ranks with some pretty intense competition to then, be sitting in, these offices in embassies, working in embassies. It was my childhood dream. And then I got to essentially the start of midlife. And I really didn't want to be the cliche, but I was 39 years old. The next birthday in a few months' time was started with a 4. And I realized that things within me weren't okay. And the thoughts and feelings within myself, Narayan, were not aligning with the awesomeness of how my life looked. And like so many of us, I tried to good vibes only. I tried to gratitude my way into alignment with, what I thought I should be feeling versus what I was feeling. And it worked, but didn't. And I thought, right, I need to double down on the things that actually helped lift me up of previous funks. in the past. So I started working out more, started working more, like, and that didn't work. So I thought I must need to work harder. So I would like double down. And it was the law of diminishing returns where, I needed to do double the amount of effort to get half the results. And that was not sustainable. And couldn't, I'm a pretty articulate guy. I speak English well, but over the course of studies at university and preparing for jobs overseas, like I learned French, German, Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, and now Te Reo Maori. Um, but frustratingly, for someone who was like I am really good with words, proudly so, I could not voice the thoughts and feelings inside because I couldn't describe them. And how could I ask for help if I didn't use the words? It was going to be some kind of like Wookiee like grunt, this cry for help, this cri de coeur. Where but like how could I ask for help? And then I remember one weekend, I opened up my iPad and I was reading the Boston Globe. And I don't know why I was reading the Boston Globe, but there was an article in there written by a male journalist in midlife saying, I have no friends. And I read it, and save from some context, some nouns, he was describing my life. And that's when it hit me. The thoughts and feelings that I was thinking and feeling were a loneliness experience. I did not want that. I did not want that at all. I felt like I was a broken human, and that I had somewhat failed. So I thought, right, double down, go harder, try harder, put a bigger smile on my face and a better whistle on my lips to try and get through the day. But it just became harder and harder and harder. And Narayan, I'll simply say that I was scared of what could happen if I didn't allow what was within me to be. And it felt like I was sort of like looking over into an abyss and I did not know where it went. And, going forward, acknowledging loneliness and getting support was like walking into the abyss. And then, like any other option, also seemed pretty terrible as well. And staying still was not working for me. So I reached out to my employer's employee assistance program, so the in-house counselors. And I remember it. It was I picked up the phone in my office in Seoul. I closed the door and went and sat so I wouldn't be disturbed. And I called the office and called the number, and it was a number here in Australia. And first of all, the person who answered the phone sounded like one of my aunts, sounded like an auntie and like a very broad Australian accent and stuff. And I was like, oh, that was actually quite grating. But I said these words, which were like, I feel like I kind of maybe sort of possibly perhaps be feeling lonely. And the counselor, who sounded like one of my aunties, said, oh, you poor thing. And I remember just sort of like recoiling and going, that's like, I don't want your pity. I want you to fix it. Like, I don't want pity. How do I fix this? This is awful. I don't want this. 10-minute free conversation ended. And I remember like she gave me the same advice that I got off Google, put yourself out there. And then the second piece of advice that she said is like, what to do some of the things that you'd love to do. And I remember feeling really frustrated, Narayan, because this was a service from my employer, and my employer had sent me and my family to live in Korea with like minimal Korean language training. And I said, it's like out there, to put myself out there is Korea. how's your Korean? And and also, I have a big job. I have responsibilities. I'm a parent. I like there's all these sorts of things that, mean that, making any change is just going to be so hard. 10 minutes was up. And basically, she said, "Oh, you'll work it out," and hung up the phone. I did work it out. I got some help. I got some coaching. And as a response to this, I kind of connected back to myself and started living more me, and happy to get into that into more detail. But for the purposes of this answer, that really poor response, pity, and giving advice that I could have got from Google, that I was trying to implement from Google, sparked something within me. And I noticed that the people around me were thinking, you know, or exhibiting the signs that I had of thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same feelings. And these were other high achieving, highly educated people with big jobs, with big responsibilities, and they were feeling scared, lost, and alone. And I thought, you know what? I could do something about that. So I did. I started writing and created The Lonely Diplomat back in 2018, when moved from Seoul to New Zealand. And that was for diplomats and families. I came out in 2020, and I started the loneliness guy. And then in 2023, after doing the course that you and I did, Narayan, I thought, right, I need to bring all of this together and create Humans Connecting. Essentially, this is the service that I wish that I had access to, that kind of safe space where I could engage with some really heavy things that I could not engage with those around me. Um, a space where I could practice the words, I could learn the new language of loneliness, and be encouraged, and we call it serving, supporting, challenging, and inspiring people. So, I needed to be served. I needed people to go, like, here's some great advice for you. I needed to be challenged, like given a kick up the pants sometimes to go and prioritize connection. And so that's what we do.
Wow, I'm just amazed at hearing your journey in more detail and how that led you to this point, and hearing a little bit about some of the things that you're doing with Humans Connecting. But I'd like to dive a little bit deeper and ask, from your perspective. I mean, I have like seen discourses around loneliness, research around loneliness, programs around loneliness, but what is really
Mm.
unique about your expertise and the approach that you're taking with Humans Connecting that maybe people
Mm.
have not thought about before, or that really makes what you do really unique and special in the
Yeah.
loneliness world?
So one of the things that we noticed, and this really frustrated me. This came part of and so a very deliberate response to that frustration that I experienced. We talk about loneliness in the third person. And I understand that. Loneliness is horrid. It is so abhorrent within ourselves. And loneliness is is a concept that we know. We know with our big, beautiful brains that, it's common. We can see the data, we could see the statistics, we could do all of these kind of things. And as a result, loneliness conversations often stay in reason, in data, in the science, in the it's kept sort of very out there, what I call in the third person. Loneliness is this. Loneliness is bad. Loneliness is, you get the point. However, all of that misses the absolute fundamental part of this. Loneliness is experienced in the first person. Loneliness is experienced by everybody. And flipping that, every single human who has ever humaned has connection needs that is unique to them. And loneliness, simply at its core, is what we experience when those connection needs haven't been met for whatever reason, but they haven't been met. And loneliness is like hunger. We experience hunger when we need to eat, and we get thirsty when we need to drink something. Loneliness is our body's way, the way that we've evolved to remind us to stop what we're doing and go and prioritize connection. In the similar way, it's like, lunchtime comes around and tummies grumble and I've been working for a few hours. I need to go and make a sandwich or, whatever, and that's it. That's it. And knowing that loneliness is how we've evolved, it's meant to feel yucky, but we're meant to go, okay, here we go. Like this is the thoughts and feelings of loneliness showing up for me. And what we then do at that point right now is simply go, you need to go and seek mental health support from a mental health professional. That is akin to, in some cases, that's true. Loneliness is a symptom of some mental health issues, but loneliness is not in and of itself a mental health issue. It's not a mental health problem. It's not an indicator of poor mental health. It's an indicator of social health.
Mm.
And that is where we're going wrong right now. And there's this whole movement, which we are part of. We're actually playing a leading role in this globally, in empowering people to prioritize their social health. Because right now, the advice of you need to go seek support from a mental health practitioner is akin to saying to someone, you need to go and see a gastroenterologist to look at the stomach ache that you're feeling because you haven't eaten in the last 6 hours. And it's simple, like what we do in combination, with that understanding of social health, plus bringing loneliness into the first person, that then cuts through. Because then what we're doing is our heart, my heart, and speaking from my loneliness experience with all of my intersectionalities, speaks to Narayan, your heart. Viewer, listener, your heart. And then the data can come in. Then rather than leading with the data and then saying things like, you're not alone. Okay, we know we're not alone. Great. But what do I do with this? How do I take a step? And that's what we do. We reach out by the hand and say, yep, this is a terrible feeling. I know you don't want this, but what are the connection? What is it that your loneliness is telling you about the connection that is important to you that you are not getting? That's what we do.
Amazing. One thing that as you were sharing, one thing that came up for me was it sounds like you are recontextualizing loneliness relative to what it's talked about in society as a need in the first person. And then I really love what you said about looking at your own intersectionalities, that coming from your heart to then connect to someone else's heart, and then upon that, bring in the data. So I appreciate hearing that perspective, the human first, the recontextualization, and then adding on data versus it sounds like there's a lot of data throwing facts, throwing solutions without really focusing on the human connection first. But with the word of intersectionality, I would love to learn a little bit, or dig deeper into that. In your perspective, maybe it's in your personal lived experience of intersectionality, what role do you believe that intersectionality plays and examining one's own intersectionalities of identity in how did you believe that gives you a unique perspective in your way of connecting with people and facilitating them on their understanding of loneliness and addressing loneliness?
Yeah, such a good question. And intersectionalities are, first of all, it's a great word. It feels very like fun to say it. But each of us as humans have our points of intersect, like our intersectionalities, and it actually makes up the rich tapestry that each and every one of us is. And for some of us, those, intersectionalities are known and, can be obvious, and others not. One of the things with loneliness, and this comes back, and our need for human connection, I'll rephrase it. It's not just about loneliness, but it is about prioritizing on the daily our need for connection and weaving that, to borrow something from myself that I just said before, weaving that into our days. One of the things that we can do, particularly when we're in the depths of a loneliness experience, is to go back to that place that loneliness is something that we want other people to have, but not in ourselves, because it means that we're weak, that we're broken, that we are, and this is a truth of loneliness, that we are somehow unworthy of love and belonging in our current state. It is simply not true. We are always worthy of love and belonging, just as we are in that moment. But what we can do is we can go, you know what, I'm thinking and feeling some pretty horrible thoughts and feelings right now, but I know that loneliness affects like 40% of the population right now are feeling the same as me, and like resources are pretty finite. So what I'm going to do, like someone somewhere will be feeling worse than I am right now. So I am going to reserve the help and support, whether that's through a crisis phone service, whether that's through the mental health system, whether that's through the health system, whether that's, by asking someone else for, like asking someone in our social circles to sit and listen to us for a little while. We reserve all of that support for good, for someone else who is more worthy of it, because we feel deep down, maybe not even deep down, that we are unworthy of love and support. So we reserve that for everybody else. So for me, that is actually the big thing. How do we create something that meets people where they are and how they are, like that speaks directly to them? And, however they are as a human. So our mission at Humans Connecting is there's two: to destigmatize loneliness. We do that by talking about loneliness openly, honestly, in the way that I'm doing right now. And then the second half of that is to help humans get the connection that they need and deserve. Now, on our podcast, we talk about we serve humans however they identify, whatever they do for a job, and however, like wherever they are in the world. Because one of the things that I found when I was wrestling with loneliness was just like, this is not something that I get. I'm smart, I'm educated, I'm white, and I'm a man. Like, this is not something that I get. I can't ever admit to that. But also, like, I was very in the closet, really could point to a very long list in my past, and many, many, many examples where I did not feel that I belonged around me. No matter how smart that I was, no matter how great I did on tests, whatever it is, never quite cracked the code. And what I've learned is that, yes, I'm white. Yes, I'm a man. But, I'm gay. I'm a parent. I have lived a life of privilege. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm this. I've grown up in a country town in regional New South Wales. I've attended a prestigious university here in Australia. Like, lapsed Catholic. All of these kind of things are like part of me. And that is important because I am worthy, just like you are, Narayan. You are worthy without conditions of getting the connection that you need and deserve. Intersectionality is important, but we can use it to our own, to silence our own need for love, support, and belonging.
Oh my gosh, just oh wow. I again really appreciate your perspective. Both from hearing a little bit about how that's affected you, but also how you help people like unpack that, it sounds like through the work that you're doing in Humans Connecting. And one thing that which came up for me as you were sharing was it sounds like in the work that you do, both in terms of telling people about it through this podcast, for example, or your podcast, but also helping them walk through it on their own journey, on their own terms, it gives them new awareness. And that helps them with, say, developing connection through a plan, through their work, and in those ways, in a way that really shows up authentically for them. And so from that place, I'm curious. It, let's fast forward like 5-10 years in the future where you've connected with like how people really become their authentic selves, understand their connection needs, to do that work for themselves in their own way. What type of impacts do you see that having in their lives and in the lives of the world around them?
Yeah, connected people connect people. And when we feel that our social needs are met, we create, whether we want to or not, we create, or deliberately or not, we create places and spaces where that invite other people to step up and to step into as themselves. You know, we have then, certainly for me, in my instance, a low tolerance for BS in life. Like you could be smart, you could, you know, or like just have a low tolerance for people being inauthentic. And that at once is inspiring. And it means that we can be, each of us then can be a safe space, a safe place where others can take off the masks, take a big sigh of relief, and just allow them to be who they are in that moment. When that, when we're in those places and those spaces, and if we are that place and space, we have no, like, it is inevitable that we feel connected. We are feeling connected to others because we see them, and then they feel connected to us because they see us and they feel seen too. That that in essence, that's the fundamental of connection. And our work is about empowering individuals to know who they are and be who they are, to get their connection needs met. Um, so what that then means, like we do that with for the human individually, but we also do that in workplaces because we spend so much of our time wherever humans are. That's where we want to. That's where we are in workplaces, in communities. And you know, we've been advising governments on how to create connected communities. We advise workplaces on how to create connected workplaces. And by meeting our need to feel seen and heard, the ripple effects, it's so devastatingly simple. But the ripple effects where people feel that they can actually take that deep sigh of relief and be in their sort of glorious, messed up, you know, tapestry of themselves. What a joy that is, and how easier life can be when connection needs are met, they're prioritized before anything else. That to me is how we measure that. Like we're trying, and we work with some world-leading behavioral scientists who match our heart-led stories with and our perspectives with science, like world-leading, groundbreaking science on how we measure the impact of that within humans, within workplaces, within society, and globally. So yeah, like it is a very symbiotic relationship because the data feeds humans and humans feed the data. And that to me is how we know when we're having the impact that we intend to have.
Again, thanks so much for sharing, Phil. So, with the next few questions, there'll be slightly shorter questions. So, would appreciate also shorter answers because we're also going to be near the end of our time today. Sadly, I wish we could go on forever because it's just been a blast. So, the first question and our wind down questions are: what's one thing you wish you knew as a founder before you started your journey? And what's one thing that you know now about loneliness that you wish someone who's experiencing it should know?
Okay. Last question first.
Cool.
You're not broken. It is simply your body's way of telling you that you're not getting the connection that you need and deserve. You're not meant, while it feels horrible, you're not meant to stay in this feeling. It's the nudge that you're giving yourself to find out what connection that you need and then start getting it. So it's the connection equivalent of going to the fridge and making yourself a sandwich. That's what you need to do. That's your body's way of telling you that. That's it. Like anything that we make it mean beyond that, that's judgment. That's unhelpful, potentially unhelpful. Focus on what it's actually telling you. First question next. What I wish that I knew before being a founder, sheer force of my will doesn't make it happen. Um, and this is a subject matter. This is something that everyone agrees is really important, but nobody wants for themselves, and you know need to put it out there, build it, and they will come, to quote Field of Dreams. And then the second thing, or 1.5 that I could say is get great people around you who who can help with the skills that you don't have, because being a solo entrepreneur is, you know, need to be all things to everybody, and you simply are not, and you cannot. And it becomes so much richer when there's people around who lend their skills and strengths to the team.
Thanks for sharing. How can people find you and support your work?
So there's LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn. It's Phil McAuliffe, and also Humans Connecting is on LinkedIn. The website is humansconnecting.org, and we're also on Instagram and stuff. But yeah, they can they can support by reading and listening to our free content, and taking a look at our products and services for individuals, for communities, for organizations, and you know our speaking services and things if they want to have me in their workplace.
Cool. Thanks so much, Phil. Now it's time for our signature question. So could you please fill in the blank? I amplify.
Our human need for social connection. Full stop.
Amazing. Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that answer. And just also, thanks so much for being on the podcast and sharing your journey, Phil. It's been amazing to hear about what you're doing with Humans Connecting, but more importantly, the why and the how, and also the impact that that's making. And so, I mean, you know, but the audience may not know. So Phil and I, we first met at a social impact fellowship in Australia. I've been like we connected a lot at that time. I then have like been more lightly like in touch with Phil since then, but ever since then, and right now as well, something I really admire about you is you're very articulate, which you talked about previously, but I love the depth that and the introspection that you not only have done with your journey, but how you guide others. You definitely did that for me in previous conversations, and you've talked about that in our discussion. And also, I love how with the work that you're doing with Humans Connecting, and you talked about this, you were talking about you're centering the person and their authenticity first, and then allowing it to naturally from their bloom into their own journey. And then when it makes sense for them, bringing in data, bringing in other things. So I love how you're really making this a human-centered process as evidenced by the name Humans Connecting. So I want to applaud and appreciate those things, and more broadly for and you talked about this as well, the way in which you think about intersectionality and how that like relates to the work you're doing. So I applaud and thank you for being an amazing inspiration to in this topic, but also to founders everywhere and underrepresented individuals everywhere. So thank you, Phil.
Ryan, thank you. I received that. Thank you for being so kind.
Again, this was a blast. I wish we could go on for much longer, but sadly we only have finite time. Thank you again so much, Phil. It was amazing to have this conversation with you. I wish you all the best with all of your work and keep amplifying.
You too, Narayan. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing and giving the platform for others to and sharing voices. Just thank you.
Cool. Bye for now. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Founders Amplified. I hope you're feeling as inspired as I am. If you'd like to learn more about our guests and support them, check out the show notes for their details. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating, share it with someone you know, and follow us for more inspiring episodes like this one. If you're a founder who is driving innovation and impact in any industry or sector anywhere in the world and would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Check out the show notes for more information. And finally, remember that you, yes, you, have the power to amplify the voices around you. Whether you're a colleague, family member, friend, funder, mentor, or just another fellow human, your support matters. So I invite you to celebrate and uplift the underrepresented innovators in your life who are driving innovation and impact. Let's create a better future for everyone, together. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and keep amplifying.